Good morning, YouTube. Hello to all of my viewers, subscribers, members of Targeted UK, perpetrators. That one's for you. Well, Shane Gibbs, Targeted Survivor, back again for a another very controversial video that I am sure is probably going to be a little bit of a first for a lot of people. A lot of people will not understand some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today, but I want to start off basically. It's going to be a tough one, to be honest with you, but this information needs to be said. I just want to start off today quickly before I go into today's controversial topic, which is a continuation of my last video, which I titled Mind Invasive Technology or something like that. Well, this is the next part. I'm actually going to make a short mini series covering the technical side of, well, basically my targeting, which is probably going to be very, very similar to probably quite a small margin of targeted people. But yeah, let's start today's video by anybody that's been following the whole Brian Harvey scenario. This week it was this week it seems that Brian had come to the end of his tether, which is basically another tactic that is used and utilised against anybody that is targeted. So not only will they try and drive you insane, they will also attack your finances, which is what they've done, which looks like what's pushed Brian over the edge this week. My thoughts and best wishes go out to Brian and Brian's family. Wherever you are, mate, I hope you're staying strong. I hope you're safe, and I wish you well, and I hope you get out of wherever you are as soon as you possibly can, and try and start mending, mate. I think the whole social media thing has done. It's got its pluses and its negatives when it comes down to somebody of your profile. With the level of trolling and the level of ridicule that you've received from brainless individuals, some most certainly are have some form of retardedness about them, but some may possibly be doing their job. Sadly, people actually get paid to fuck with people on the internet, which is pretty common knowledge these days. But I just want to put out a heartfelt best wishes to Brian. No one's heard from Brian after he put his video out where he was threatening to kill himself. Bit of a cry for help, if you ask me. But once again, it's another tactic that's utilised against people that are targeted. They will hit you wherever they possibly can to drive you to the point that Brian Harvey has come to, and probably hundreds, possibly thousands of other targets around the globe that have succeeded. And these parasitic animals have achieved their goal by pushing said individual to commit suicide. One of the main outcomes of the program is to drive the individual insane, to get them institutionalized in some kind of mental health facility, or alternatively, even better for them, to kill themselves. So that gets rid of the whole scenario down to that individual, plausible deniability because the person done it to themselves, etc, 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 etc. So it was quite heartbreaking watching Brian break down the way he did on his live streams. Nobody knows exactly what happened after that live stream was cut off, after the policeman obviously grabbed hold of him through the metal fence in his or the metal gate that he erected outside of his property. So it's just a case of waiting and seeing. I think he needs to get away from this whole social media roundabout, and he needs to heal. He needs to mend. He needs to get his wits back around him. To start with, he needs to be somewhere where he's safe. On his own is not, doesn't even come into the equation, if you ask me. He needs to be around family and friends, people that love him, people that care about him, and he needs to stay off social media, because everybody knows what's gone on. Everybody knows now what he's been pushed to. The trolls are probably frothing at the bit. I dread to think how many videos have been made about that poor fella. But these sick fucks will be out there, and they'll be reveling in the demise, or the apparent breakdown that that Brian was showing us all and showing the world during this last week. So I can only hope and that he's safe and he's well and he's being looked after by the right people, and that he can move forward from this and hopefully regain some kind of normality back into his life. But time will tell, I suppose. Anyway, back onto the today's video. Today's video is going to be, like I mentioned prior at the beginning of this video, it's going to be quite controversial. It's going to be it's going to be a lot to take in for a lot of people that are going to be watching this, especially people that are not targeted. The targeting comes in many forms. It comes in so many levels. It's just, and I truly believe that that's done deliberately. But there are a percentage of people that are targeted that are targeted with technology. As you can see, this is quite a hard video for me to actually make, but I will soldier on as I always do. This information needs to get out, and as seems as nobody else is willing to come forward and talk about these types of topics and this type of information, then I feel it's only my duty, if you like, to get this information out to the wider populace. This video needs to be shared, and it needs to go and be spread around as many of your social media accounts as you possibly can, because what I'm going to be exposing in today's video is certainly something that the people that conduct these sick and twisted programs most certainly does not want out in the public domain. So let's go back in time. Let's go back to around 12 years ago. I believe it was around 12 years ago, 11 or 12 years ago, when one morning I woke up and I had blood streaming down my left nostril. It was all over my pillow. It was everywhere, which was quite. And this is before all of the real overt targeting began. You know, the home invasions, the poisonings, the car, the vandalism, the attacks of the dog, using my bed, then some dirty foul animal utilising my bed as a toilet, etc. You know, all of that nasty, evil, vicious stuff that many of you know, many of you have heard me talk about previously, probably many times before. So around 12 years ago, I woke up with this severe bleeding down my left nostril, from my left nostril, and back then didn't really put, you know, it was a surprise. It had never happened before. And what proceeded from that point after that morning, probably within the next week, I came down with some very severe infection, some sinusitis. It's called sinusitis, which was an infection of the sinus area. And still not putting anything, not putting two and two together as one wouldn't. Doctors, antibiotics cleared up the infection. The infection kept coming back, and more antibiotics. The infections kept returning, and I still didn't think nothing of it. I just thought it was normal, just thought it was natural. And what I'm getting at, this will all make sense as I get through this video. So then, sorry, obviously hesitant about and quite traumatizing bringing back all of this these memories. You know, it's not pleasant. It wouldn't be it's not pleasant for anybody, and particularly for somebody that's actually lived through it. But this, like I said before, this information needs to be put out into the public domain for many reasons, but particularly just to get the point over of how and why these animals do what they do, and how they do it. Last week I was talking about how anybody that's in the Vice documentary, I mentioned voice to skull technology and how I'm getting people are communicating with me, and all of the alien stuff and the Jesus stuff and all of this other sort of like, you know, spiritual shenanigans that was going on. I was basically like an outsider. I was along for the ride, if you like. You know, I could see everything that was, you know what's natural, you know what's not natural, or hopefully a lot of you do. And I knew that something wasn't right, and it was only after an ex-girlfriend of mine who's a nurse, actually, because I've, you know, since the science thing about 12 years ago, that was when I started getting some severe, you know, more than migraines. It was like intense. It was like somebody had opened up my skull and was stirring my brain with a spoon. It was just it was unspeakable pain. You know, it was pain that I've never experienced before, and it just didn't make sense. And so obviously went back to the doctors again, and he started prescribing me a brain pain medication called sumatriptan. Sumatriptan is a medication that they give people that has had serious brain injuries and brain trauma. So but that was the only medication that could actually alleviate the severe mind-numbing pain that I was experiencing. And a friend of mine, like I say, an ex-girlfriend of mine, she was a nurse, and she said she commented and sent me a message asking if I'd looked into earth magnet therapy. Never heard of it before. And so she explained what it was, and I looked into it, and it was quite a big thing in the in certain medical fields. And I purchased an array of very, very small type strong N52 magnets, neodymium rare earth magnets. I put them in my inside my pillow, which is what she said. She said just try and put them around your head area, and it might alleviate some of the pain that you're experiencing. And I was quite shocked in the morning, because when I woke up, one of the magnets through the pillowcase had actually decided to stick to my nose, just like that. And things started to make a little bit of sense. Let's take that off. So it was that point then that I obviously started putting two together, and realised that that nosebleed wasn't a natural nosebleed. That nosebleed was actually the outcome of a device that had pierced my sinus membrane on my left side. Listen. Right, this is my right side. My left side. I can't breathe through my left side of my nose. You can't really see it too much here either, but you notice the line. Obviously getting older, but obviously the sleep deprivation don't help. The line, the crease there, is not so prominent on that side. It's because I've actually got a slight swelling. The cartilage is, that whole left hand side of my nose is absolutely buggered. So I obviously discovered that I can attach magnets to certain parts of my face and particularly behind my cochlear regions, and I'm not going to start sticking magnets all over myself. It's ridiculous. I've been there, done that. I actually went to the doctors to discover, or try and get them to do some kind of investigation as to what these magnets were sticking to. When I was when I was 8 years old, I was taken in for surgery for an ear, nose and throat operation, and it just so happens that the magnets stick behind my ears, they stick on my neck, and obviously, as I've just shown you, they stick on my on the left hand side of my top of my nose, around my sinus area. So I've gone to the doctors and I've shown them this, and I've actually got audio recordings of the doctor's appointments, which I took covertly. My GP was absolutely stunned. I asked her whether there was any possibility that maybe something may have been left inside me during the ear, nose and throat surgery that I had when I was 8 years old. What I want to focus on today is the sinus issue, the left-hand sinus issue, where I woke up with the blood streaming from my nose about 12 years ago. And that was when I started. I'm trying to start working out and understanding exactly what was going on. Like I said, I mean, I was just letting all this ride by, and like a passenger, basically, just watching it all pan out, taking everything in, trying to make sense of everything from the rational perspective, from a realistic perspective. And that's when everything started coming together. Everything started making sense. It was just like, how the fuck are these people connecting to me the way they are? And during many days and nights and months and years of research, I actually came across this. I'm going to actually put this up as the thumbnail for today's video. And basically what I've just shown you, it's a picture and some text of a device, a neurocommunication spike electrode brain signal processor radio transmitter receiver implantation device. The brain radio, they call this thing that they get stuck up people's left or up into their sinus area, they call it a brain radio. And the brain radio transmits and receives, take note of that, transmits and receives, two-way. It's not a one-way system, it's a two-way communication link. Transmits and receives signals of electric brain activity, influences consciousness and behavior by cognitive processes produced by neurotelecontroller. It is common that neurotelecontroller aims at copying the endogenic natural cognitive processes and blend his own goals and choices into the consciousness of the target of electronic behavioral modification, electronic mind control, in manner most easily accepted and learned by the target. So basically what that device that I have, until I actually see it in my hand, which I probably will never do, is the device that was inserted up into my left sinus area around 12 years ago. Hence the brain to computer link, the hive mind link, the brain to computer interface, whatever you want to call it. People call it all sorts of things. V2K, voice to skulls, synthetic telepathy, etc., etc., etc. Basically, it's an interface between a computer, their system, their technology, and the human brain, i.e. my brain. That is how they are able to not only speak into somebody's head directly. And there's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of people that think they get, you know, oh, I had V2K once, and you're either linked or you're not. Simple. There's no ifs and buts. There's no, oh, I had it once, I had it last year and it's gone and all that. If you're linked, you're linked. And it's all about learning and understanding and then controlling the information on a two-way process. It will all make sense as I go through the rest of today's video. The first real that I can recall, the first real indication of communications was probably not long after the device had been stuck up. You know, I was still unaware that something had been put up there. I was still unaware that people were obviously creeping around my home while I was asleep in bed, which I got audio recordings for on a hard drive stashed away, ready to be utilised at whatever point. Always been well into fitness, always been well into, you know, very interested in boxing, martial arts, etc., running, blah 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 blah. And for some reason, I don't know what I haven't got a clue. Well, I've got a clue. Training just seemed to become everything and anything that I was interested in. You know, everything was about training for, you know, running, beating your personal best, and, you know, making sure that you was physically fit. The first instance that I can recall was what I presumed was my own conscious pushing of myself, i.e. pushing myself, training. It was just, you know, you'd finish your set and it'd be like, and you'd be knackered, and you just had, oh, come on, one more set, and automatically I just thought, it was me. And you know, I probably got into the most, and maybe this was done for a reason. This is a picture of me around that time. You know, I was doing some modelling for magazines and photo shoots for this and photo shoots for that, and obviously the extra fitness training that I'm almost certain that I was being pushed to do subconsciously was definitely a result of the implant or the brain radio, whatever they stuck up there. And always had, when I was sitting, you know, the second thing that really sort of like sprung to mind was I would be sitting there as you do, and obviously I'm reaching down, reading something and that, and I'd get this little sit up straight, shoulders back, chest out, almost like military type order, which I just didn't even well, why would I think it was anything nefarious? But that was probably my first interaction with the brain to computer interface that was inserted up and is still in my left hand science area, which I talked about in the Vice documentary. Truly, I believe that is the only way that they can manage to get such visual, audio, technical, almost computer generated matrix type scenarios going on inside my mind. The talking was, them idiots are just a bunch of parasitic cowards, and I'll move on to that a little bit later. But it was, prior to the realization, like what I talked about in last week's video, when I talked about how they tried to convince me I was Jesus, and I tried to convince me that I was some kind of alien star child, indigo lad boy, whatever, space cowboy, which was all quite comical to me, to be honest with you, because it was just, I've always been very grounded. I've always been very centered when it comes down to what's real and what's not. You know, I'm just one of them sort of people. And probably lucky for me that I am that sort of person. I've got that sort of strong will, that sort of strong persona as a person, to understand myself. I know myself. I know my body. I know my mind. I know my brain. I know, as all and everyone should. So after all of this pathetic star stuff, and you know, the star charts, and you know, all these visuals and alien languages being sort of like, I could hear these alien language things in my, you know, where they was, I don't know, where they was trying to, I don't know, convince me that I was being communicated with aliens or something. I don't know, but it was, I found it very, very amusing. And after all that failed was when the real the real shit hit the fan, let's say. And was when I actually started getting the human to human communication through the system that was implanted illegally, non-consensual, up into my left hand nostril while I was asleep in my home 12 years ago. That was a tough time. It was a tough it was a tough nut to crack. It was a tough nut to it was a really, really horrid period of the targeting that, you know, I wouldn't wish on anyone, to be honest with you. But luckily I managed to retain my sanity and retain my intelligence. Nothing seemed, you know, if anything, my intelligence actually increased and my alertness became more astute, and you know, it was just, my hearing became, you know, I could hear a pin drop from fucking half a mile off. It was great. I just couldn't understand it. And it was also around that time that it was like they was almost tuning in. I'd get all these various tones that seemed like it was, you know, people talk about tinnitus and ringing and all that, and this was tones, and they would increase and decrease. Both ears, predominantly the left ear, and it was a very unsettling time. But still, I still remained cognitive to the fact of what was happening and the realities of where I was and what I'd been put into. So that's when, after all the other shit finished, and it was just, I mean, it was obvious to them that they was obviously wasting their time when it come down to trying to convince me that I was some born again messiah or whatever it was. So the tactics then changed, as they did periodically during those years. They then started, I'm going to read some comments, and anybody that is genuinely dealing with very, very similar targeting, with the comments and the statements that I'm going to read now will probably make a lot of sense to you, because I'm certain that they are, you know, I'm not the only one. And so I went through I've got through all of the shenanigans with the visuals and the star charts and the born again messiah stuff and all of this other sort of thing. And then it was like, statement one: well done, your training is nearly over. Anybody had that one? Your training is nearly over. You sick fucks. They then started, this is something that I haven't really heard too many people talking about, they then started catfishing me with somebody, with a female from a pop group called N-Dubs, called Tallulah, who was the spitting image of my crazy ex-wife, which was really bizarre. And it was, I mean, they was like, oh yeah, she's gonna be out waiting for you outside this place in a white Range Rover, and this and that and the other, and just, you know, obviously obviously at that point I just thought, oh bloody hell, maybe this is some kind of training, and maybe I've come through the training and blah 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 blah, this and the other. It's going to be a really long video today, so I must apologise, but it's going to take as long as it's going to take. So they tried the catfishing with Tallulah, and I actually did go to one of the arranged meeting places, and indeed there was a brand spanking new blacked out windowed white Range Rover sitting in exactly the same place as they told me it would be sitting, and just as I approached the Land Rover, it sped off. It was at that point things started making sense to me, and it was like, these fuckers are playing games, and I need to understand, I need to learn, I need to do research, I need to keep looking in and finding answers and seeking answers for the situation that I was being confronted with. Then it was after they realised I'd seen through the whole catfishing with Tallulah from N-Dubs. I'd get comments like, you're going to be compensated for what you've been through. Make sure you do the lottery this week. Go and buy a scratch card from here. Go and buy a scratch card from there. And it was all just to fuck around with you and just to have you running around like some kind of fucking puppet. I did do the lottery. I did buy scratch cards and never won a fucking thing. So then it went on to it was like they used to. You see it in films. It was like a good cop, bad cop scenario. You know, it was like you'd have one good person coming in, and they'll be defending the conversation from the bad one. It was like good cop, bad cop. You know, and it was just like, what the fucking hell are you people up to? I could understand what was going on. I knew what was going on. I had no way of being able to deal with it or end it. So it was a case of learning to live with what was going on. So we had the good cop, bad cop scenario going on. We then had your family's involved. They're all involved. Strange phone calls to members of my family at strange times. So it almost sounded like whispering and all that from. I was in one room and I'd hear sort of like as if they was talking about whatever. So they tried to convince me my family was involved, and I know my family, and probably it's only down to the fact that the love and bond that I've got with my family has probably helped me come through this ordeal. So I'm very, very lucky in that respect, because I know a lot of people that are targeted, their families have turned against them, or indeed have instigated their family member and sold them in to the program for whatever reason. I really don't know, I really don't care. So it was like your family's involved. Right, then it was like no, then no. Then it was like, oh, this is happening because you're special, Shane. You're special. Bullshit. There's nothing special about me. We've been watching you from birth. This has been going on from birth. It's about your bloodline. It's generational. They try to then, that's when I started looking down the whole RH negative stuff, which is what a lot of targets seem to be stuck in. Some, oh yeah, I'm special. I've got special blood, and blah blah. Don't let them convince you of anything. Find out yourself. There's nothing special about any of us apart from the fact that we have been illegally, inhumanely targeted by some of the most hideous technology, the most pathetically cowardly, parasitic, evil people that were controlling. Some people call them handlers, whatever. I don't know what they were. I never had anybody come up to me and say that they're my handler, which is another thing that a lot of targets. Oh yeah, I'm my handler this and my handler that. And if I knew believe me, if there was any inkling that anybody was claiming to be a handler, that wouldn't have probably ended too well for us, to be honest. So it was then the special stuff. It was around that time the real electronic harassment started, the frequency attacks, the sleep deprivation, and they would be like, and it would be like, we're not going to let you sleep tonight, and it went on for months. We're not going to let you sleep tonight. No sleep for you tonight. And during those sleepless nights, I was sexually molested regularly by these perverted, pathetic, parasitic cowards. How they'd done it, I've got no idea. I was just like, I was along for the ride, and it was just completely out of my hands. It was like they had control of very disconcerting, very, very sick and twisted part of the targeting. You know, they would tell me when they was going to be doing this stuff. I would hear them laughing. I would hear them having conversations in the background, not directly to me, but to themselves. It was just, you know, it was just crazy. It was just, I was living like two realities. It was fucking messed up. And then the microwave attack started. You know, if you go back to my video, you will see the short video where I managed to catch on video very, very high levels of microwave radiation that was being targeted through my bedroom window. It wasn't long after I'd done that video, I started becoming very sick. I started becoming very, very lethargic. Couldn't carry myself. It was hard work even standing up. The sleep deprivation, the continual mind invasion. You know, something was killing me. My hair started falling out. My teeth started falling out. My nails became like paper. I was getting muscle wastage, severe weight loss. You know, I knew something. I could tell something was killing me. My body was dying, and they obviously took the opportunity through the interface, through the communications, the brain radio communication system that had been implanted into my sinus. They took it on themselves to actually tell me that the microwave radiation was killing me and I am dying, and so I may as well kill myself. Never gonna happen. Would never happen. Will never will happen. I would never in a million years dream of hurting myself. So that was obviously a waste of their time. But they had great fun between themselves. Conversations, group conversations, constant ridicule, constant negative scenarios. You know, hypergame. Brian Chew talks about the hypergame theory. He was, and he's right. I mean, it's one of the Brian Chew talks a lot of good information, but there's a lot of things I don't really understand what's going on with that fella. But I mean, it was only down to him that I actually learned and discovered the hypergame theory, which is what the technology uses against the target, against the individual. They used some kind of voice patterning, whatever, voiceover shit, where they used to pretend that it was people that I knew communicating directly through to me through the brain radio device, whatever the fuck it is. There's that magnet sticking to up in my sinus area. They pretended to be Gerard Brown, the Freemason, the father of the Freemason who attacked me in the nightclub back in 1996. They pretended to be work colleagues. They pretended to be neighbours. They pretended to be this, and it was just so fascinating and so amusing at times. And you know, I think a lot of people would have fallen foul at that point, which I'm sure many have, and I'm pretty certain that many will fall for in the future. So it was constant ridicule, you know, with the sleep deprivation, of the way that my body was being destroyed through the radiation, or the microwave radiation, or whatever it was that was being targeted at me through the bedroom window that I was residing in back in Ashford. And it was just, you know, they wanted me living in this negative, low frequency life, if you like, you know, where there was no positives, there was no negatives, there's no way out, Shane. It's impossible, this and that and the other. And then one day, to my advantage, I learned and discovered the two-way system. And this is very important for anybody that is getting, you think you're getting V2K, if you think that you are linked to some kind of computer interface. This is very important. And the way I don't suffer with V2K and dickheads on communication systems anymore, and haven't done for some years now, purely because I learned that the system that they was using and trying to use against me was a two-way system that I could actually utilize for my own gain. And the only reason, and there's a lot of people, I mean, there's two ways that they used to communicate. There would be some kind of automated loop type chatbot shenanigans, just chattering loop, and then you'd get real-time operators, and it ranged from teenage kids right the way up to adults. You'd get people pretending to be military, whatever, but basically it seemed like there was some kind of system, some kind of you know, the hive mind system maybe, but it seemed to me like they was taking turns to, it was like they was on some kind of rota, and it was continual. And then I don't know what it was, I can't remember the comment, but I was always attacking them back in from a verbal point of view. But piece of advice: never, ever verbalize communications with these fools, because that will cause you a lot of problems. You communicated through your reading voice, through your, I'm assuming, as I mentioned in last week, I mean, it's this, whatever they've stuck up that sign is, has got, you know, it's linked to my mind's eye, my reading voice, internal reading voice, etc., etc. Very, very clever technology, but very old technology. This is not new stuff. This is very, very old tech. I dread to think what they've got at their disposal these days. More, you know, maybe they don't need to insert things up into people's sinuses covertly, creeping around like cowardly parasitic rats in the darkness, breaking into people's homes and putting things inside them while they're sleeping in their bed, thinking they're safe and sound. But what I learned, luckily, was the emotional responses that I was getting from some of the operators that were coming on the system. And it was then I started understanding it was a two-way thing. And the power of the mind is an amazing thing. And your mind is more powerful than you actually are led to believe. Anybody that's linked to the same system that I'm talking about, you need to utilize your imagination and your reading voice in connection with each other to combat, upset, annoy, and basically learn. I learned that I could terrorize these people exactly, if not worse, than they were terrorizing me, or trying to terrorize me. Hence the reason why I don't have any problems with V2K operators these days, because they don't particularly enjoy the conversations or the outcome, which was very, very harsh from my point of view. I'm not going to go into what I utilised against them, how I utilised against these pathetic idiots. But he's very, very capable. Everyone has got the capabilities through the two-way system to attack your attackers through the same system. I've tried explaining this to many TIs over the years, and I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's because I'm not explaining it right, but no one has actually managed to do a similar or the same thing that I've tried to educate them on, which is why so many people have so much trouble with their operators, with their V2K operators. I mean, it's really heartbreaking to see how detrimental this side of the targeting can actually be to a person, and be to a person, an individual that is completely unaware that the technology is being utilised against them. And it was from that point on, really, that I took back my power, if you like, and over time I perfected my own capabilities, utilising imagination, utilising visuals, utilising my mind, I suppose. And it is very, very you are very capable of doing exactly the same thing, I'm certain, but it takes discipline. It takes continual discipline and training from our part, from my part, to perfect. You know, it's great to me. That was it was a point where I was just like, fuck, because it was all just so one-sided all the time. I knew what was going on, I could understand what was going on, but it was just like one way, bang, 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 just didn't stop, until I discovered through one of their weaker operators that you could emotionally affect them, not only verbally but with visuals. And just a little tip, you need to pick a subject, and I chose the subject of their mother, and utilised their mother as a way to attack them back, visually, verbally, internal verbally, not external. Never externally verbalise to these fucking fools, because that's what they want. So it was, that's when it was just like, I used to, sorry, I will get, it's really hard to try and recall all of this stuff and get it over in a fashion that you can understand. And once you learn, it's a two-way system, once you learn the capabilities of your own mind, utilising the technology that they've put inside you against them, you're pretty much home free. You will never ever, until whatever's taken out of you, or whether the system is decommissioned, that link will always be there. It's how you control that link, it's how you utilise the technology against them that they initially used against you to eradicate, drive you insane, instigate you murdering someone, instigate you killing yourself, instigate all of these other things. It's a two-way thing, it's a two-way system. And the sooner a lot of people out there that are dealing with very similar targeting, the sooner that you understand the two-way scenario of this communication system, because that's all it basically is, the better you will be, the stronger you will become, the more defiant you can be, the more fuck you can be. the more cocky you can be, the more stubborn you can be, the more take your power back. It's achievable. It's not easy, but it's very, very achievable. So the reason that I decided to talk about this side of the targeting today is not only to get this off my chest, but it's also to explain that there are and there is a massive problem, specifically here in Kent, in the past 2 years, say. I mean, I have heard, as probably many have, it's all been on mainstream news, about people that have murdered people because the voices in their head told them to do it. One particularly that sticks in mind was a barbaric attack against a young woman in Chatham, which is probably about half an hour from where I'm living, last year, where her ex-boyfriend listened to the voices in his head that told him that he needed to go and slaughter this beautiful young lady in broad daylight in her car, in the car park of the gym that they both belong to. I can't remember his name, but he basically said that the voices in his head had ordered him to go and slaughter, and I mean slaughter, like a lump of meat. Apparently there was 76 knife wounds on this poor young lady's body when the police finally turned up. So I know that there are teams of covert scumbags utilising technology pretty similar to how they try to utilise it against me, but to people that have got no understanding of what they're going through, think that they're naturally gifted. You know, the technology will try and convince the individual that you're special, that you're this, that you're that you're not. It's all bullshit. It's all FUBAR, fucked up beyond all recognition. Got that from Saving Private Ryan. So we had that instance last year when that young lady was slaughtered to death. You know, that's like butchered like a lump of meat in her own car in broad daylight. Recently, there has been a very, very similar scenario go on in a place called Hadlow, in just outside Tunbridge, which is probably about 40 minutes away from where I'm living. And let me find the article that I'm going to read. Just bear with me a moment, because it was a couple of days ago, where another individual had taken it on himself due to the voices in his head, whether he thought there was demons, whether he thought there was angels, whether he thought there was whatever, I don't know. But another young man has had his life taken away from him, and at the same time had slaughtered more innocent people. Here's the article. A 28-year-old chef. Funny that, yeah. I was in that, didn't realise that. He's a chef, I'm a chef by trade. KentLive.news. Chef accused of murder claims voices told him to kill mother and daughter, which was his next door neighbours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to read it to you. And hopefully this should make some sense and give you some understanding of the capabilities of this technology to somebody that is completely unaware that they are being targeted with said technology. So on Kent Live, if I might put the link up if I can be asked, but if not, then you need to go on Kent Live. It's An article written by Vicky Castle, updated on the 14th of March 2019. Chef 28, accused of murder, claims voices told him to kill mother and daughter. Jack Ralph 28 is charged with the double murder and one attempted murder at a house in Hadlow, just outside. Why is it doing that? No, it must allow me to go back. Chef accused of stabbing his two neighbours to death spoke of hearing voices the night before the stabbings which commanded him to kill his neighbours. Tried it with me. They tried to command me to kill all sorts of people. I've never been one to take discipline. I've never been one to take commands or orders from anyone. I've always been a bit of a free spirit, a free, whatever you want to call it. Jack Ralph said he believed they were in God's bad books. So obviously they've utilised some voice of God. You know, one of the things that I never encountered was any voice that claimed to be God. Some people call it the voice of God weapon, which is pretty well known for. But with me, no, I think it's probably because they realised that they was barking up the wrong tree with me when it comes down to all of these pathetic situations that they try to convince me of. Jack Ralph said he believed that they were in God's bad books, and that seeing one of them wearing a red coat was a sign that his mother would herself be attacked by them. So basically the voices, the operators, had convinced this young man that if he sees one of his neighbours wearing a red coat, colour sensitisation, another big thing for targets. So we've got a voice of God that's telling this young man, or a voice of some pathetic, parasitic coward, utilising technology against this young man, telling him, or maybe not. I might be completely wrong about this individual, who knows. But the person claiming to be some kind of godly person that was communicating directly to this guy's mind utilised the colour of red to trigger him into murdering and attempted to murder a third. So he murdered two people and he attempted to murder I think it was the father. Let me carry on reading the article. Jack Ralph said he believed they were in God's bad books, and that seeing one of them wearing a red coat was a sign that his mother would herself be attacked by them. So basically they put the idea in his mind that his neighbours were going to kill his mother. Sharon Harris, 55, suffered a fatal chest wound, while her 78-year-old mother Margaret was fatally stabbed 3 times in her neck. David Harris, 76, who had opened the door of his home in Carpenter's Lane in Hadlow to Ralph on the morning of September the 28th last year, 2018, and desperately tried to protect his family with a rolling pin, suffered 4 stab injuries to his neck, ear, back and forearm. Maidstone Crown Court heard a doctor later concluded that had the 3 centimetre neck wound penetrated just 1 millimetre further, it would in all likelihood have proved fatal. Some little dingy dongs going on this morning. A consultant forensic psychiatrist described him as perplexed at times and emotionally disconnected, but fit to be interviewed by police. The doctor's report, summarised by prosecutor Philip Bennett QC to the jury yesterday, March 13th, detailed the build-up to the alleged double murder and attempted murder bids. This includes reference to general confrontations, as well as what Ralph later referred to as a slight altercation with Mr. and Mrs. Harris at 7 p.m. the night before he stabbed them. Prosecutor Philip Bennett said he talked about the neighbours shouting at me and clawing at my eyes. He had been angry, seen red, and got a kitchen knife to go to neighbours to kill them. He started hearing voices the night before which commanded him to kill his neighbours. On waking at 6 a.m, the voices continued. He described the voices as a powerful tool. He described hearing a high-pitched sound and a sensation of liquid in his head. The high-pitched "" . Yeah. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . pretty much the same system, the same technology they utilise against a lot of people. A lot of people that have attacked and killed innocent people, a lot of people that have killed themselves, a lot of people that have been locked up in insane mental asylums and mental hospitals under the impression that they are mentally ill. This is the sick world that we're living in, people. And the sooner people start understanding and realise what the realities of today's society actually are, and a lot safer it's going to be for a lot of people. The reason that I'm bringing this up and talking about this, let me just finish this and then I'll start babbling. He described the voices as a powerful tool. He described hearing a high-pitched sound and a sensation of liquid in his head. He described it as an act of God, which must have motivated him to do this level of attack. God gave him a sign, he claimed. The court heard Ralph, who also worked as a labourer, had lived next door at number 24 with his mum for about 18 years. He said he had first seen the red coat some weeks prior to the knife-ins, however it was not said whether it was worn by Mrs. Harris or her daughter. Oh my God. Yeah, tone ringing. Not a lot you can do about it, I'm afraid. Mr. Bennett continued. He said that about the female neighbour wearing a red coat, which he found significant. He took it to mean the neighbour would attack his mother, either to stab her or run over her in her car. He said God gave him a sign the neighbours were in his bad books. It was giving him a headache and drying my head out. Don't know what's doing that. Obviously, weird. He referred to the neighbours overeating and buying a lot of toys. He said that they were squandering the earth's resources. Can you see? And that's enough. I'm not going to read anymore. So basically, the reason that I've chosen that article to read and mentioned the other vicious, horrendous murder that took place here in Kent, literally minutes from my home, where another individual, a young man, slaughtered a young lady in Chatham in the car park because the voices in his head told him to. What I'm getting at here is that this technology could be utilised against anyone and everyone. Now, that actually means, I don't know if you're getting what I'm trying to get over it. The point I'm trying to make is that they can utilise this technology on an innocent individual that is oblivious to the fact that they are being remotely controlled, basically, by technology. And then that individual can go next door, pick up a knife out of the kitchen and slaughter, murder people, because the operator's in his head, or the operator. And the reason I'm saying it is because they tried to do this to me. Exactly the same setup, exactly the same process as what they've done to this guy here. The voice of God. It's called the voice of God. What they've done to the other guy, him and this. You know, I'm not going to start doing research and fight him, but I am certain, pretty much certain, that if anybody does a basic internet search and for murderers that were being commanded by the voices in their head, I'm sure that it will bring up an absolute mass of cases where it is a very, very similar process that has been utilised or tried to be utilised against me, wasted time. Utilised it against a young man. He murdered 2 people, potentially murdering a third. Luckily that man survived. Last year that young woman cut to pieces, you know, literally cut up like a pork chop. So they have got the capabilities of targeting an individual, possibly over the street, for that individual then to be so hypnotized by the technology, by the operators utilizing the technology against that individual, to convince them that they are God, convince them that they are some almighty glorious being, and the individual, i.e. the victim, will be their tool used to murder and slaughter innocent people. This is fact. This is not science fiction. This is science fact. And it will only get worse, and the murders will only increase. But people with similar stories to what that young 28-year-old who's now his life's over, as well as the people that he murdered, their lives are over. Can you see how many people that this technology is affecting, or how it could have possibly affected them? Just take me for a minute, and I can imagine if. Now, I can only thank my lucky stars that I was of the sort of person to recognise exactly what was happening, exactly what was being tried to do. You know, I'm just skimming over the surface today. I'm already an hour and 6 minutes into the video, and I've not even started to give you any form of detail about the capabilities of this technology and what it is capable of doing to an individual. It goes far, far beyond any of, I'm certain, most of your comprehensions. But this is real. This is happening. This is going on in this country. This is going on in my home county. This is probably going on in my hometown still. People are being targeted with technology that is turning them into animalistic, barbaric murderers at the push of a button. And nothing is being done about it. Now, I don't care about what happens to me now. It's pretty irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You know, that's probably one of my saving graces, is that I've never had any fear. I've never had, you know, if anything, it's been more ridicule. Where they've tried to put me in fear, it's been more funny and amusing, which I'm pretty much certain is not the desired effect that I was looking for. But what I'm trying to say is that if these people, if this technology and the capabilities of this technology is not put out into the public domain, and this information and this level of targeting is not exposed, how many more people will be slaughtered and murdered by cowardly, parasitic individuals trying to push someone over the edge, trying to push someone to, or convince someone that they are something they're not, trying to convince them that their next door neighbours need murdering. Do you know one of the things that they never done with me? Every one of the perpetrators that I knew was involved, my neighbour, my neighbours, the Brown family, etc., it was never go and kill them. Not once did these dickheads try and instigate me to attack any one of the perpetrators that I know were fully involved with my potential takedown. The campaign, the Take Shane Gibbs Down campaign, that failed miserably time and time and time again. Yeah, you've taken everything. Yeah, you've taken the house. Right, the business is gone. Material things don't matter. You come in to this world with nothing, and you leave with no material possessions. So whether I've had them. You know, I've been in positions where, you know, money wasn't an option. Never been a real materialistic type of person. But as everyone, you know, you work hard, you enjoy the benefits of working hard. And these people have taken everything. They killed my dog, they took my home, they took my business, they tried to take my sanity. And no one in officialdom is doing anything to stop these fucking cowards. So it comes down to people like myself, who has luckily managed to live through some of the most hideous and inhumane treatment a human being can be confronted with, can be put through. To have your body, to have your mind invaded from an outside perspective group, whatever the fuck they are, I don't really give a shit. One of the hardest things that you must, anybody that's dealing with very, very similar stuff to what I'm talking about today, one of the things that you must get over is the fact that you have no privacy. The privacy that you and anyone should be and is entitled to as a human being has been taken. Your mind has been hacked through technology, utilising technology. Like I said, I am so lucky that I've got a strong, loving family that have managed and helped me through the tough times, through the times when I could hardly walk up a set of stairs, the times when I couldn't eat because I was continually nauseous through the microwave radiation attacks, the pain that I managed to deal with somehow through. I don't know how. I don't know. I've got no answers. I don't know how I've managed to get through this. I don't know why I am able or was able to actually sit there and go, do you know what the fuck are you people trying to do? You know, the hypnotism, the brainwashing, it was like water for duck's back. None of it stuck. I don't know why. And yeah, it was difficult, and yeah, but for me, a lot of it was really amusing. But for me, I'm the lucky one. For someone like that man and his neighbours that have now been taken from this earth due to the voices that man was hearing, the people that was talking and telling that man to go and do what he done. Now there are some. If this is not stopped, any one of your family members could be next. Any one of your neighbours could be next. Any one of your loved ones could be next. Murdered, slaughtered. They got a thing about knives. With me, it was the same. Everything was knives, and it was knives and blood. Maybe that's like the satanic side of things, you know. I'm sure they must get off on knowing that they've managed to tip someone and push someone over the edge to the point where they've literally gone and cut a human being up like a piece of sausage meat. There's so much more to this technology that I am certain that it needs to be talked about. It needs to be out. It needs to be put out there. This information. You know, if the authorities don't want to listen, if the authorities are not willing to open up investigations and look into these side of things, that can only mean that they're complicit. That can only mean that the silence that they're showing when it comes down to targeted people, the arrogance that some of these people in authority are actually utilising against people that are trying to explain what is going on with them. is so blatantly obvious that this is so much bigger than what most people think. So much bigger. So much more. So hideous, so inhumane that I don't understand how people get enjoyment out of watching and pushing somebody to go and do something like what they tried to do, get me to do, and which failed miserably. What they got that man to do, what they got that young fella to do last year, and it's gonna, and I'm sure there's dozens more out there that I don't know about. I'm sure there's dozens more that are in mental health units that have been targeted and have gone and lost the plot, have been hypnotised, have thought God was talking to them, and they've gone and done something that has caused someone else harm. Or can you understand the impact that just that one story? You know, you've got that family, you've got 3 members of a family, 2 slaughtered, 1 survived. Can you imagine? You've got the perpetrator, the individual that actually went and perpetrated the crime. All his family, all his siblings, all his brothers and his sisters and his uncles and his aunties, and all, the ripple effect of this kind of viciousness is horrific. You're probably looking at hundreds of people. Just that one instance has affected hundreds of people between them 2 families alone. That's why I needed to talk about this subject today. This is why I needed to run through and give you the experiences that I had conquered. I very, very rarely do I get a peep out of anything these days. I know there's a link there. I know the only time the link goes is when that magnet's on that. So I don't know what it does, but it obviously scrambles something because you can feel it just disappear. It's weird. But unless I can find some kind of honest surgeon, doctor, to actually give me the opportunity to, one, get this technology removed, then that link's probably going to be there for until the day that I leave this earth, which is it's no biggie for me. It's amusing for me. I find it amusing. I love ridiculing these people. I love emotionally disturbing them. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Hey, shit cunts. And so now you know maybe why I'm so brash. Maybe why I'm so fuck you. Because what I've been through, you're not supposed to survive. What I've been through, you're not supposed to come through. What I've been through, you shouldn't be able to years later sit there and go, this is what happened, this is how they done it, this is what they did, this is what they tried, this is what they failed, and now this is how I counter. The only way they're going to stop me is physically stopping me. Set up after set up after set up after set up. Show no fear, people. Remain defiant. Today's video is going to be a shocking amount of information for a lot of people that are going to be watching it. There's a lot of my subscribers that have no comprehension of what is going on right here in Kent, and not only here in Kent but probably in every other county in the UK, along with most other westernised. I mean, just look at it from this perspective. And most people that go insane, what do they talk about? Two main topics: Jesus born again Messiah, or aliens. You make your own mind up. I'm not claiming that genuine mental health doesn't exist, because of course it does. Of course people have nervous breakdowns. Of course people are pushed to the edge. Look what these animals have done to Brian Harvey. He was at the end of his tether. Somebody like Brian would not have been able to deal with some of the stuff that I've talked about today, because some people are not built to be able to deal with that. Some people's minds are not capable of being turned into some kind of fucking quantum computer. You know, some of the capabilities of this technology, like I said in last week's video, are absolutely mind-blowing. Some of what they can do, how they can, it's like a computer. They utilize you and your brain as a computer. They use your memory bank as a Rolodex. They can pluck a memory. Do you know what they like doing these days to me? The only detrimental thing that I have to put up with these days, they like playing a video loop back to me of when my dog died, when my dog took his last breath, the seizures that he was having. That's what I get these days, because there is nothing else they can do. There is no more suffering that they can try and instill in my life. But the capabilities of this technology are mind-blowing. How the fuck can they have, you know, and I'm talking, they will play the scene and visualise, I can see it in my mind's eye, of Ted having a seizure, taking his last breath, dying in my arms, squeaking, wincing in pain and agony as he took his last breath. Can't hurt him no more, can you? And you know you can't hurt me. So you know, we are in some, the human population, the genuine human population are in big trouble, unless this faction is not stopped, this technology is not turned off. We will hear more and more stories of people being murdered, people explaining that the voices in their head had told them to do this and told them to do that and got them to do this and got them to do that, and it will all be put down as mental illness, mental health problems. Some are, but I bet you a massive percentage are not. Anyway, an hour and 23 minutes. I dread to think how long this is going to take to upload. But this information has got to be said, and this information needs to be shared. And whether you choose to believe or not, I don't really care. I just needed to get this information out there. What you know, how many people do you know can go along and start sticking magnets over themselves and can prove with research in a rational, stable fashion the experiences that I've encountered from my very, very personal targeting program that has failed miserably. But I know that not everyone is going to be like me. I know not everyone is going to have the the mental strength to not only deal with this kind of scenario, but also come through it. Where has humanity gone? Where has the people of this world are very lost. Very lost indeed. Well, that just about sums up. Yeah, that's enough today. Like I said, I'm probably going to do some kind of mini series. I might carry on next week, or I might not. I might just go back to normal. I might just go back to my normal topics. But because of these stories and Brian this week and all of this sort of stuff, this is what these people are. And that guy may be mentally ill. I've got my doubts. Brian Harvey, now he has been pushed and pushed and pushed to the breaking point that we all saw earlier on this week through his live feeds. This will only keep growing, this will only keep getting worse. More and more people's lives will be lost, more and more people will be murdered. The perpetrators, the victims, all the while, from a distance, you've got a bunch of parasitic, cowardly scum, psychopathic shitbags that are controlling from a distance people's minds. Very, very sad. Very, very sad indeed. Well, it needed to be said, people. I don't, like I said, I've got no, I don't care anymore. I've got no fear anymore. There's nothing more that they can do to me that they haven't done already. There's nothing more that they can do to me that I haven't come through time and time and time again previously. So from that perspective, they're wasting their time. And they're probably frothing at the mouth after watching this video. Because I don't think the individual person is supposed to be able to get to this point. I don't think the intended target is supposed to be able to relay this level of information after coming through such hideous, inhumane treatment that is being ignored and ridiculed by numb-nutted people in authority. Sad, eh? Anyway, that's enough for today. I can smell a roast chicken. Yeah, that'll be steak kids. Yeah, roast chicken, roast dinner today, people. But I need to go and have a workout first, build up my appetite. And yeah, I hope you found what I've talked about today of some interest. If not, don't care. Big shout out to all of my subscribers, big shout out to all of my viewers, biggest respect out there to all of the brave targeted people that are fighting this tyranny that they shouldn't be. I will be back at some stage in the next week or so with another update video. Sorry for the heaviness of today's information and the length of today's video, but this information needed to be put out. This information needed to be talked about, and as nobody else is talking about it here in the UK, fuck it, fell to me, didn't it? So that's enough for today. You stay strong, people. Remain defiant. Anybody that wants to, I'm not going to be talking about too much detail about this stuff in comments on, but if anybody wants to email me, please feel free to drop me an email, shane@targeteduk.com. That's targeteduk.com. Targeted UK is one word. Then please feel free to drop me an email. and I'll answer you as honestly as I can. So until next week, take care, look out for each other, keep your wits about you, people, stay strong, and I'll catch up with you all again real soon. Take care, bye for now.